Platform screamed through the command center like a dying animal. Red lights flashed across every wall and console as another defense platform exploded in the darkness above Earth. Admiral Chen watched the holographic display with a face carved from stone. Each blinking dot that vanished from the screen was a station full of people. Each empty space in the formation was 1,000 souls lost to the void. Platform 17 is gone, Lieutenant Park said from her station. Her voice shook, but she kept reporting. Platform 21 has stopped responding. Platform 9 is venting atmosphere. Chen nodded slowly. He had stopped feeling the shock hours ago. Now there was only the cold mathematics of survival. How many ships did they have left? How long could they hold? When would the enemy finally tire of destroying their defenses and start burning their cities? Through the massive observation window, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black. Beautiful, peaceful from this distance, but all around it, death danced in bright flashes of weapons fire. The Korthax fleet filled the space between the planet and the moon. Hundreds of alien warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. The Korthax had arrived 3 days ago.
They had not tried to communicate.
They had not made demands. They simply began destroying everything humanity had placed in. Orbit, satellites, stations, ships. The human defense fleet had responded with everything they had. It was not enough. Chen remembered the first battle. 200 human warships against the Korthax vanguard. The engagement lasted 17 minutes. 143 human ships were destroyed. The Korthax lost 12 vessels. After that, the mathematics became very clear. Humanity could not win through strength. They could only delay, buy time, hope for a miracle that would never come. "Sir, the carrier group Delta is breaking formation," another officer called out. "They are making a run at the enemy command cluster." Chen closed his eyes. Captain Rodriguez commanded that group, a good man with a wife and 2 children on Earth below. He knew what this run meant. They all did. When you broke formation to charge the enemy command ships, you did not come back. You only hoped to do enough damage to matter. "Track their progress," Chen said quietly. "Honor their sacrifice." The holographic display showed Delta Group's ships as they accelerated toward the largest concentration of Korthax dreadnoughts. The alien ships were massive things, covered in dark armor that seemed to drink in the light. Their weapons glowed with purple energy that turned human ships into clouds of expanding debris. Delta Group fired everything they had. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy weapons stabbed at the darkness. For a moment, humanity struck back with fury. 3 Korthax cruisers took damage. 1 dreadnought's shields flickered and failed. Then the Korthax returned fire. Chen watched as every ship in Delta Group vanished from his display within seconds. No escape pods, no survivors, just empty space where brave people had been moments before. "How many ships do we have left?" Chen asked. Lieutenant Park checked her console. Her hands moved across the holographic controls with practiced efficiency, but Chen could see them trembling. 73 combat-capable vessels, sir. Another 41 damaged, but still fighting. Estimates show we have maybe 6 hours of combat effectiveness remaining. 6 hours. Chen had lived 62 years. He had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for 40 of those years. He had fought pirates, settled disputes between colony worlds, and kept the peace across human space. Now, at the end of everything, he had 6 hours left to defend his home. "Sir, we are receiving retreat orders from the surface," Commander Hayes said from the communication station. "The Security Council wants all remaining ships to fall back to the moon. They want to preserve what is left of the fleet." "For what purpose?" Chen asked, his voice bitter. "So we can watch from the moon when they burn our planet. So we can survive a few more hours while Earth dies." Hayes said nothing. There was nothing to say. Chen turned back to the display. The Korthax fleet was reorganizing. Their formation shifted with mechanical precision. The larger dreadnoughts moved forward while smaller cruisers formed protective screens around them. They were preparing for the final assault. When those dreadnoughts reached bombardment range, they would reduce Earth's cities to ash and glass. "How long until they reach firing position?" Chen asked. 2 hours, maybe 3, Park replied. 2 hours. Not even enough time to evacuate the cities. Not that there was anywhere to evacuate to. The Korthax would hunt down any survivors. That was what they did. 37 worlds had fallen to the Korthax in the past decade. 37 civilizations erased from existence. Now humanity would become number 38. Chen thought about his own family. His son was stationed on Mars, probably fighting his own desperate battle there. Chen had not spoken to either of them since the invasion began. The communication networks were too damaged. He hoped they knew he loved them. He hoped they understood he had done everything he could, sir, Park suddenly shouted. I am reading spatial distortions at the edge of the solar system. Something is happening near Pluto orbit. Korthax reinforcements, Hayes asked, fear sharp in his voice. I do not know, Park said. The readings are strange, not matching any known jump signatures. It is like space itself is bending. Chen felt his stomach drop. Reinforcements? Of course, as if the Korthax fleet was not enough. Now more would come to ensure humanity's complete destruction. Try to get better readings, he ordered. I want to know what we are dealing with. But even as he spoke, he knew it did not matter. Whether the distortion was reinforcements or some natural phenomenon, the outcome would be the same. Earth would fall. Humanity would end. The only question was how long they could make the enemy bleed before the end came. Around the command center, officers continued their work. They tracked enemy movements. They coordinated the scattered remnants of the defense fleet. They did their duty even though they all knew how this would end. Chen felt a fierce pride looking at them. Humanity might die today, but it would die fighting. All ships, Chen said into his command channel. This is Admiral Chen. I will not lie to you about our situation. We are losing. We cannot stop what is coming, but we can make them pay for every meter of space they take. We can make them remember that humanity did not surrender, did not beg, did not go quietly into the dark. When our children's children look back at this day, let them see that we stood, that we fought, that we made the enemy know they had been in a battle. Across the fleet on 73 ships and 41 damaged vessels, human beings prepared themselves for the end. They loaded weapons. They checked shields. They said prayers to whatever gods they believed in. And they waited for the final battle. The Korthax dreadnoughts continued their advance. Earth continued to spin below, unaware that these might be its final hours. And at the edge of the solar system, something continued to tear at the fabric of space itself. Admiral Chen watched it all and waited for the end to come. Supreme Warlord Kreth stood on the command deck of his flagship and watched the humans die. It brought him no pleasure. Destroying lesser species was simply necessary work, like clearing rocks from a field before planting crops. The humans had spirit, he would grant them that. They fought harder than most species did when facing extinction, but spirit meant nothing against superior power. Status of the bombardment fleet? Kreth asked his weapons master. Ready to achieve firing positions in 90 minutes, Supreme One, the weapons master replied. The human orbital defenses are nearly eliminated. Resistance is minimal. Kreth nodded his massive head. The humans had surprised them at first with their determination. 3 days of constant fighting. Even now, scattered ships still launched desperate attacks. But the outcome had never been in doubt. The Korthax Dominion had conquered 37 worlds. Earth would simply be one more jewel in the Empire's crown. Prepare the ground assault forces, Kreth ordered. Once we finish the orbital bombardment, I want troops on the surface within hours. The humans have some interesting technology. I want it captured and studied. Around the command deck, Korthax officers worked at their stations. The ship hummed with power. Outside the armored windows, the Korthax fleet filled space with its might. 500 warships, 10,000 fighters, an unstoppable armada that had never known defeat. Then Lieutenant Park's voice crackled across the human command center again. Sir, the distortions are intensifying. Something is definitely coming through near the moon. Readings are off the scale. Admiral Chen moved to her station. The display showed waves of energy rippling through space. It looked like reality itself was tearing open. Can you identify it? No, sir, Park said. It is not matching any Korthax signatures. It is not matching anything in our database. The holographic display flickered and shifted. Every sensor in the human fleet suddenly focused on the same point in space. There, hanging in the darkness between Earth and the moon, space began to shimmer like heat rising from hot pavement. Commander Hayes gripped his console. Whatever it is big. Mass readings are incredible, larger than anything the Korthax have brought. Chen felt ice form in his chest, something larger than a Korthax dreadnought. That should not be possible. Nothing in the known galaxy was that large. Battle stations. All ships prepare for unknown contact. The shimmer in space grew stronger, It looked like someone had painted a section of the void with oil, creating rainbow reflections where there should only be darkness. Then, like a curtain being pulled away, something appeared. The ship was massive. Chen had seen Korthak's dreadnoughts up close, vessels 3 kilometers long that could reduce moons to rubble. This ship made them look like toys. It stretched at least 10 kilometers from end to end, angular and sharp, covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The hull was dark but not black. It seemed to absorb light and reflect it in colors that should not exist. What is that? Hayes whispered. All across the battlefield, fighting slowed and stopped. Human ships held their fire. Korthak's vessels paused in their advance. Every sensor, every eye, every camera turned toward the impossible ship that had just appeared in Earth's orbit. Strange symbols covered the vessel's hull. They glowed with soft blue light, moving and shifting like living things. The ship's design was unlike anything Chen had ever seen. Not human, not Korthak's, not any species in the galactic database. It looked ancient and new at the same time, as if it had been built by a civilization that understood secrets the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Are they broadcasting anything? Chen asked. Nothing, sir, the communications officer replied. No identification, no hails. Complete silence. On the Korthak's flagship, alarms suddenly blared. Kreth spun toward his sensor officer. What is that ship? Why was it not detected earlier? Unknown, Supreme One, the sensor officer said, his voice edged with fear. It appears to have been cloaked with technology beyond our ability to detect. Its power readings are... Supreme One, I cannot get accurate readings. The ship is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined. Kreth stared at the vessel on his display. In 40 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like it. Identify it now. We cannot, Supreme One. It matches nothing in our records. It is not human. It is not any species we have encountered. The design is completely foreign. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Kreth felt something close to concern. The Korthak's dominion had spread across the galaxy through superior technology and tactics. But this ship represented something beyond their experience, something potentially more advanced. Hail it, Kreth ordered. Demand identification. The communications master worked his console, broadcasting on every frequency. Attention, unknown vessel. You have entered a Korthak's military operations zone. Identify yourself immediately or you will be considered hostile and destroyed. Silence. The massive ship simply hung in space, its strange symbols pulsing with that eerie blue light. It made no move, sent no response, did nothing except exist in all its impossible glory. Chen watched the ship on his display, his mind racing. Could it be another alien species? Something drawn by the battle? Possibly, Park said. But sir, if it was drawn by the battle, whose side is it on? That was the question. The ship had appeared between Earth and the Korthak's fleet. It could attack in either direction. It could even attack both. For all Chen knew, it might be a predator drawn by the smell of blood, ready to finish off whoever survived the current battle. Keep all weapons ready, Chen ordered, but do not fire unless fired upon. We do not know what this thing is capable of. Kreth was thinking the same thing on his flagship. The unknown ship was massive and clearly powerful, but the Korthak's fleet numbered in the hundreds. Surely no single vessel, regardless of size, could stand against such numbers. All ships, Kreth broadcast across the fleet. Lock weapons on the unknown vessel. Prepare to fire on my command. Across the Korthak's armada, hundreds of warships turned their weapons toward the mysterious ship. Purple energy built up in their cannons. Missiles armed themselves in their tubes. The fleet prepared to unleash enough firepower to crack a planet. The unknown ship's symbols suddenly changed color, from soft blue to bright white, then red, then something that looked like fire burning in ice. Admiral Chen saw his tactical display light up with warnings. The unknown ship is powering weapons, multiple systems activating across its entire hull. Is it targeting us? Hayes asked. Park checked her readings, then checked them again. Her face went pale. No, sir. All weapon locks are targeting the Korthak's fleet. For a moment, nobody in the human command center moved. Nobody breathed. The implication was too enormous to immediately process. It is not targeting us, Chen said slowly. It is targeting them. Hayes looked up, hope and disbelief warring on his face. The ship is defending Earth? Before Chen could answer, the mysterious vessel acted. Ports opened along its hull, revealing weapons of a design nobody had ever seen. Energy gathered at hundreds of points across the massive ship. The Strange symbols on its hull blazed with light so bright it could be seen from Earth's surface. Supreme Warlord Kreth saw his tactical display light up with target locks. Hundreds of them, thousands, the unknown ship was painting every vessel in his fleet. Shields to maximum, he roared. All ships fire. Fire everything. But the mysterious ship fired first. Beams of pure white light stabbed across space. They moved impossibly fast, appearing almost instantaneous. The first beam struck 3 Korthax cruisers. The cruisers' shields did nothing. The beams passed through the defensive fields as if they did not exist and struck the ships themselves. The cruisers exploded, not gradually, not in spreading flames. They simply ceased to exist in bursts of white light that faded almost as quickly as they appeared. Admiral Chen watched in stunned silence as the unknown ship continued firing. Beam after beam lanced out from its hull. Each one destroyed a Korthax vessel. The mighty fleet that had been crushing humanity for 3 days suddenly found itself facing something far deadlier. It is helping us, Lieutenant Park said, her voice filled with wonder. It is actually helping us. Chen felt something he had not felt in days. Something he thought he would never feel again as he watched his world die. He felt hope. The mysterious ship had chosen a side. It had decloaked in Earth's darkest hour and joined the fight. Against all logic, against all probability, humanity suddenly had an ally. The battle was not over. But for the first time since the Korthax arrived, Earth had a chance. The Korthax fleet had never retreated from a battle. In the entire history of their empire, across dozens of conquered worlds, the Armada had never once fallen back before an enemy. Supreme Warlord Kreth intended to keep that record intact, even as white beams of light tore through his ships like paper. All dreadnoughts focus fire on the unknown vessel, Kreth commanded. Concentrate everything on its forward sections. Find a weak point. 40 massive Korthax dreadnoughts turned as one, their movements synchronized through battle computers. Each ship carried enough firepower to reduce a small moon to dust. Together, they represented the ultimate expression of Korthax military might. Purple energy built up in their main cannons until the weapons glowed like small suns. Then they fired. 40 beams of concentrated destruction converged on a single point on the mysterious ship's hull. The energy was enough to vaporize a mountain, enough to boil an ocean. The purple beam struck the unknown vessel directly and vanished. Admiral Chen watched from his command center as something impossible happened. The Korthax weapons simply disappeared when they touched the mysterious ship's surface. It was as if the vessel existed slightly out of phase with reality itself. The beams did not bounce off. They did not explode against shields. They just ceased to exist. Did you see that? Commander Hayes asked, his voice shaking. The weapons did not even reach it. Some kind of defensive field, Lieutenant Park said, studying her readings frantically. But unlike any shield technology we understand, it is not deflecting or absorbing the energy. It is sending it somewhere else. Maybe another dimension or folded space. Chen did not fully understand the explanation. He only understood what his eyes told him. The Korthax could not hurt this ship, but the ship could definitely hurt them. The mysterious vessel continued its assault. The white beams fired in rapid succession now, sweeping across the Korthax fleet like searchlights of death. Each beam found a target. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates. The Korthax ships died one after another, their advanced armor and shields offering no more protection than tissue paper. On the Korthax flagship, Kreth watched his fleet die and felt something he had not experienced since childhood. Fear. Real, primal fear. Deploy fighter wings. Overwhelm its point defenses with numbers. Get inside its defensive range. It was a sound tactic. Capital ships were powerful, but fighters could swarm and overwhelm defensive systems through sheer numbers. The Korthax had 10,000 fighters spread across their fleet. Surely even this mysterious vessel could not track and destroy 10,000 small, fast-moving targets. The fighter bays opened. Thousands of Korthax fighters launched into the void, their engines leaving purple trails in the darkness. They accelerated toward the massive ship, spreading out in a cloud that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Their pilots were the elite of the Empire, trained to take down any enemy. The mysterious ship's hull began to glow with a different color. Soft green light traced new patterns across its surface. Then thousands of smaller weapons ports opened, revealing point defense systems. The green beams fired. They were smaller than the white beams, no thicker than a human finger. But they moved even faster. The green swept across space in complex patterns, creating a web of death around the mysterious ship. Every beam that touched a Korthax fighter caused it to explode instantly. Admiral Chen watched as the fighter attack turned into a massacre. The green beams tracked their targets with perfect accuracy, never missing, never slowing. In less than 2 minutes, 3,000 Korthax fighters had been destroyed. The remaining pilots broke off their attack and retreated in disarray. "Sir," Park said, and Chen heard awe in her voice. "Sir, we need to attack now." While the Korthax are focused on that ship, "This is our chance." Chen stared at the tactical display. Park was right. For 3 days, humanity had been on the defensive, running and dying. The Korthax had controlled every engagement, but now they were confused, scared, and their formation was breaking apart as ships tried to maneuver away from the mysterious vessel's weapons. It was time to fight back. "All ships," Chen broadcast across what remained of the human fleet. "This is Admiral Chen. An unknown ally has engaged the enemy. I do not know who they are or why they are helping us, but I know this is our only chance to save Earth. All vessels, attack pattern Delta 7. Target any Korthax ship that is damaged or isolated. Hit them hard and fast. Make them pay for what they have done to our world." Across the scattered remnants of the human fleet, tired crews suddenly found new energy. Pilots who had been preparing to die now saw a chance to live. Ships that had been fleeing now turned back toward the enemy. Humanity had been given a gift, a chance. They would not waste it. 73 combat-capable ships and 41 damaged vessels accelerated toward the Korthax fleet. It was still a pitiful force compared to what remained of the enemy, but it was no longer a force without hope. The humans struck at the edges of the Korthax formation, targeting ships that had already taken damage from the mysterious vessel. Commander Sarah Chen led her squadron of fighters through the chaos. She was the Admiral's daughter, though few people in the fleet knew that. She had been flying combat missions for 2 days straight, surviving on stimulants and determination. She had watched friends die, had watched the whole defense fleet slowly ground down to nothing. Now she armed her missiles and selected a Korthax destroyer that was venting atmosphere. "All birds, follow my lead. Target the wounded one. Make your shots count." Her squadron followed her in, 12 fighters against a destroyer that outweighed all of them combined. But the destroyer was hurt, and its attention was focused on the mysterious ship. Sarah's targeting computer locked on, and she fired every missile she had. The missiles streaked across the void and slammed into the destroyer's damaged sections. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. The destroyer tried to turn to bring its weapons to bear, but Sarah's wingmate followed up with his own missile barrage. The destroyer shuddered and then broke apart, its hull splitting open to vent crew and atmosphere into space. "Splash one," Sarah called out, allowing herself a moment of fierce joy. One destroyer. It was not much, but it was something. It was humans fighting back. All across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships found targets and struck them. Missiles and energy weapons hammered at Korthax vessels that were already damaged. The humans could not match the mysterious ship's devastating firepower, but they did not need to. They just needed to keep the pressure on. Keep the Korthax off balance. Supreme Warlord Kreth realized his fleet was being destroyed from 2 directions. The mysterious ship in front of him, carved through his dreadnoughts like they were made of tin. The pitiful human fleet behind him picked off damaged ships. His formation was in tatters. His crews were panicking. "Reform the battle line," he commanded. "All ships concentrate fire on the mysterious vessel. Ignore the humans. They are gnats. Destroy the real threat." But the Korthax crews were no longer listening with their usual discipline. They had seen unstoppable weapons, seen their mightiest ships blown apart, seen fighters by the thousand wiped from space in seconds. Morale, that intangible thing that separated an army from a mob, was crumbling. Some Korthax ships tried to follow Kreth's orders. Others began to drift out of formation. A few even turned away from the battle, their captains deciding survival was more important than glory. The mysterious ship seemed to sense the disarray. Its weapons shifted targets, now focusing on the largest and most powerful Korthax vessels. Dreadnoughts that had terrorized a dozen worlds found themselves targeted by multiple white beams simultaneously. Their shields, their armor, their advanced Korthax engineering meant nothing. One by one, the mighty dreadnoughts died. Admiral Chen watched it happen and felt like he was witnessing something from ancient mythology. A god descending from the heavens to smite humanity's enemies. The mysterious ship fought with a precision and power that seemed almost casual, as if destroying Sir, the Korthax are breaking, Park called out. Multiple ships are leaving formation. They are retreating. Chen could hardly believe it. The Korthax never retreated, but there on his display he could see enemy ships turning away from Earth and accelerating toward the edge of the system. Not just small vessels, cruisers, battleships, even some of the dreadnoughts were fleeing. All ships pursue, Chen ordered. Do not let them regroup. Drive them out of our system. The human fleet gave chase, their weapons finding targets among the fleeing Korthax ships. Sarah Chen brought her fighter squadron around and fired her remaining guns at a cruiser's engines, contributing to the damage that would eventually cause it to fall behind the retreating fleet and be destroyed by pursuing human destroyers. On his flagship, Supreme Warlord Kreth finally accepted reality. He had lost. Lost to a primitive species he should have crushed in hours. Lost to an unknown ship that had appeared from nowhere. His fleet was broken. His reputation destroyed. If he stayed, he would lose everything, including his life. Signal fleet retreat, Kreth said quietly. Each word tasted like poison. Emergency jump. All ships to designated fallback coordinates. The remaining Korthax vessels, less than half of what had arrived at Earth, engaged their jump drives. Supreme Warlord Kreth stared at the damage report scrolling across his command console and felt his control slipping away. Half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The mysterious ship still hung in space like a dark monument to his failure. And worst of all, his warriors were afraid. Fear was not part of Korthax training. Warriors of the Dominion were bred and raised to know no doubt, no hesitation, no terror. They conquered worlds without mercy and accepted death without complaint. But Kreth could see it in their eyes now, in the way they moved, in the trembling of their hands over their consoles. They had met something beyond their understanding, and it had broken something fundamental inside them. Supreme One, his second officer said carefully, the fleet is ready to jump. We should withdraw while we still can. Kreth wanted to execute him for cowardice, but the officer was not wrong. Every tactical calculation said retreat was the only logical option. They could not destroy the mysterious ship. They could barely survive its attacks. Staying would only mean more losses, but Kreth had not become Supreme Warlord by accepting defeat. He had crushed 37 civilizations through cunning when strength alone was not enough. And now, looking at that massive alien ship, an idea formed in his mind. If they could not destroy it, perhaps they could capture it. Belay the retreat order, Kreth said. His officers turned to stare at him. Prepare the assault pods. We are going to board that ship. Supreme One, his second officer said weakly. We cannot penetrate its defenses with weapons. How will troops succeed? That ship is designed to fight other ships, Kreth explained. Its weapons are made to destroy large targets, but assault pods are small, fast. We will overwhelm its defenses through numbers, and once our warriors are inside, technology means nothing. Only skill in combat matters, and no species in the galaxy matches Korthax warriors in close quarters. It was desperate. Kreth knew that, but desperation had bred some of his greatest victories. If they could capture that ship, study its technology, the loss of the fleet would become meaningless. The Korthax would gain power beyond imagining. Launch all assault pods, Kreth commanded. Target every section of that ship. I want 10,000 warriors aboard it within minutes. Across the remaining Korthax vessels, assault pods launched from their bays. The pods were small armored spheres, each carrying 8 Korthax warriors in full combat gear. They accelerated toward the mysterious ship in a massive swarm, thousands of pods moving in erratic patterns to avoid being targeted. Admiral Chen saw them launch, and his heart sank. They are trying to board it. Warn the ship. We are broadcasting on all frequencies, the communications officer replied. But they are still not responding to our hails. The assault pods closed on the mysterious ship. The Korthax warriors inside prepared their weapons and equipment. Each pod was equipped with cutting lasers that could slice through ship hulls, magnetic clamps to hold them in place, and enough firepower to overwhelm any internal defenses. The warriors had trained for boarding actions their entire lives. The pods reached 300 meters from the ship's hull. Then 200. Then 100. The mysterious ship symbols changed color again. From blue to yellow. Then to orange. Then to red that pulsed like a heartbeat. New ports opened along the ship's hull. Much smaller than the weapon ports they had seen before, thousands of them appeared, creating a grid pattern across the entire surface. The ports glowed with soft white light. Then the light intensified and fired. What emerged was not like the beams that had destroyed Korthak's ships. These were pulses of energy, tiny compared to the ship's main weapons. But there were thousands of them, firing in rapid succession. The pulses formed a defensive sphere around the ship, a grid of crisscrossing energy that filled the space around it. The first assault pods entered the grid and simply disintegrated. The energy pulses tracked them with perfect precision, hitting each pod multiple times until it broke apart. The warriors inside did not even have time to scream. "Pull back," Kreth screamed into his command channel. "All pods aboard attack!" Return to ships immediately, but it was too late. The pods were committed to their attack run and could not reverse course fast enough. They plunged into the defensive grid and died by the hundreds. The mysterious ship's point defense system operated with mechanical efficiency, destroying every pod that came within range. Some pods tried to evade. Their pilots threw their craft into wild maneuvers, spiraling and weaving to avoid the energy pulses. A few actually succeeded for several seconds, but the mysterious ship's targeting systems did not miss. They calculated trajectories, predicted movements, and fired with absolute accuracy. Within 3 minutes, all 10,000 assault pods were destroyed. 10,000 Korthak's warriors died without even reaching the ship's hull. Commander Sarah Chen watched the massacre from her fighter and felt sick despite knowing these were the enemy. "They are just destroying them," she said over her squadron channel. "Not even trying to disable them, just wiping them out." "Good," one of her pilots replied bitterly. "After what they did to us, I hope every single one of them dies." Sarah understood the sentiment. The Korthaks had shown humanity no mercy, but watching thousands die in seconds reminded her that war was horrible regardless of who was dying. She pushed the thought away and focused on her instruments. Her job was to protect Earth, not to judge. On the Korthak's flagship, Kreth stood frozen as he watched his boarding attempt fail completely. He had gambled everything on that assault. Gambled and lost. Now he had fewer ships, fewer warriors, and no new strategy. "Supreme One, we must retreat now," his second officer pleaded. "We have lost. There is no shame in withdrawing to fight another day." Kreth turned to look at him. The officer was right. But if Kreth returned to the Dominion having lost to a primitive species and an unknown ship, his life was forfeit. The Emperor did not tolerate failure. Better to die here fighting than to face execution in disgrace. "No retreat," Kreth said. "All ships prepare for final assault. We will ram that ship if we must, for the glory of the Dominion." But his officers did not move to obey. They looked at each other instead, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the second officer spoke again, his voice quiet but firm. "No, Supreme One. We will not throw away more lives for nothing. The fleet will retreat. You can stay if you wish to die, but the rest of us choose to live." It was mutiny. In any other circumstances, Kreth would have killed the officer where he stood. But looking around his command deck, he saw the same determination on every face. They were done. They would not follow him to certain death. Kreth felt something break inside him. His authority, his power, everything he had built across decades of conquest gone in 3 days. He slumped into his command chair and said nothing as his officers began the retreat. "All ships, emergency jump protocols," the second officer commanded. "Set course for rendezvous point Theta. Jump in 60 seconds." The remaining Korthak ships turned away from Earth and began powering their jump drives. Space around them began to ripple and distort as the ships prepared to tear holes in reality and escape through them. Admiral Chen watched them go and wanted to pursue, to make sure they never came back. But his fleet was exhausted and damaged. They had won, but barely. Chasing the Korthaks might trigger one final desperate battle that humanity could not afford. "Let them go," Chen said quietly. "They are beaten. They will not return soon, if ever." The Korthak ships jumped one by one, disappearing in flashes of purple light. Within minutes, the entire enemy fleet was gone. The space around Earth was suddenly empty except for debris fields and the human survivors, and the mysterious ship. It still hung there, silent and unmoving. The battle was over. The Korthaks were gone, but the biggest mystery remained. Who was inside that ship? Why had they helped? And what would they do now? Lieutenant Park studied her sensors. "Sir, the mysterious ship is powering down its weapons. All systems going to standby mode." "Are they preparing to leave?" Commander Hayes asked. "I do not think so," Park replied. They are just waiting like they want to talk. Admiral Chen took a deep breath. They had fought together against a common enemy. Now it was time to meet their saviors face to face, whoever or whatever they were. Open a channel, Chen ordered. All frequencies. Let them know we want to communicate. The communications officer worked his console, broadcasting humanity's message of greeting into the void, toward the ship that had saved Earth from certain destruction, toward the mystery that floated above their world. This time, finally, the ship responded. The silence stretched for 5 full minutes after Admiral Chen's hail. On the human command center, every person held their breath. Outside the observation windows, the mysterious ship hung in space like a sleeping giant. Its strange symbols had returned to their soft blue glow. The vessel that had destroyed half the Korthax fleet with casual efficiency now seemed almost peaceful. Maybe they do not want to talk, Commander Hayes suggested nervously. Maybe they will just leave now that the fight is over. Or maybe they are deciding what to do with us, Lieutenant Park said quietly. We assume they are friendly because they fought the Korthax, but we do not actually know their intentions. Chen understood their concern. The ship had saved Earth, yes, but it had also demonstrated power beyond anything humanity could match. If it decided humans were a threat or a resource to be exploited, there was nothing the defense fleet could do to stop it. Then the communications console lit up with an incoming signal. Sir, the communications officer said, excitement and fear mixed in his voice. We are receiving a transmission, audio and video. It is using our own communication protocols somehow. Put it through, Chen ordered. Main screen. The holographic display flickered and changed. The image of space and the mysterious ship was replaced with a new view. A room, or what looked like a room. The walls were smooth and white, covered in the same strange symbols that decorated the ship's hull. Soft blue light came from no visible source, and in the center of the image stood a person. At first glance, they appeared human. 2 arms, 2 legs, standing upright like any person from Earth. But as Chen looked closer, he saw the differences. The figure was tall, at least 2.5 meters, with proportions that seemed stretched. Their limbs were slightly longer than they should be. Their face was similar to a human face, but with features that seemed refined, almost idealized. Their skin had a faint luminescence to it, as if they glowed from within. But it was their eyes that truly marked them as something other. They were larger than human eyes and filled with swirling colors that shifted like oil on water, blues and greens and purples that moved with each blink. The figure wore a simple garment that might have been a uniform, dark fabric that seemed to absorb light, covered with more of those glowing symbols. They stood with perfect posture and looked directly at the camera with an expression that might have been curiosity. When they spoke, their voice was clear and melodic, and impossibly they spoke in perfect English. Greetings, defenders of Earth. I am Commander Terral of the Vanguard Fleet. I apologize for not responding to your communications earlier. We needed to ensure the Korthax threat was fully neutralized before making contact. The accent was strange, old-fashioned somehow, like listening to recordings from centuries past. The pronunciation was perfect, but the rhythm of speech was slightly off, as if they had learned English from books rather than from native speakers. Admiral Chen stepped forward, though he knew the figure could not actually see him yet. This is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for your intervention. You saved our world. We owe you our lives. The figure Terral tilted their head in what might have been acknowledgement. Your gratitude is appreciated but unnecessary. We did not come as strangers offering charity. We came home to defend our own. Chen felt confusion wash over him. I do not understand. Home? Your technology is beyond anything we possess. Your appearance is different from ours. How can Earth be your home? Terrell's expression changed. It might have been a smile, though it did not look quite like a human smile. Perhaps it would be easier to show you. We are transmitting data to your systems now. Historical records, genetic information, evidence of what we are about to tell you. Lieutenant Park's console began receiving massive data transfers.
Sir, we are getting files.
Huge amounts of information. Ship logs, DNA analysis. Something about a colony ship. Chen felt a cold understanding beginning to form. Commander Terrell, what are you telling us? Terrell straightened, and when they spoke again, their voice carried weight. The weight of time and distance and unimaginable history. 53,000 years ago by your calendar, humanity achieved its first interstellar colonization. A ship called the Exodus carried 10,000 volunteers into deep space. Their mission was to establish a colony on a world your astronomers had identified as potentially habitable. The journey should have taken 200 years. On Earth's command center, people began pulling up the data being transmitted. Historical records appeared on screens. Images of an ancient generation ship. Plans and manifests and mission logs written in Old English so archaic it was barely recognizable. "I know this ship," Chen said slowly. "The Exodus. It is a legend, a myth. The ship launched and was never heard from again. Most historians think it was destroyed in an accident or by equipment failure." "No accident," Terrell said. "The Exodus encountered a spatial anomaly, what your current science would call a temporal rift. The ship was pulled inside and trapped in what we now understand to be a pocket dimension, a bubble of space-time moving at a different rate than normal reality." "A pocket dimension?" Hayes said. "That is impossible. That is theoretical physics. Your current physics," Terrell corrected gently. "Inside the anomaly, time moved differently. For every year that passed in normal space, thousands of years passed inside. The colonists realized quickly they could never return home. They were trapped, so they adapted. They survived. They built a civilization in that isolated pocket of reality." Park was scanning through the genetic data with shaking hands. "Sir, the DNA profiles match. These people share our genetic markers. They are human. Or they were. Evolution has changed them, but the base genome is ours." 50,000 years, Chen said, the scale of it overwhelming him. "You were trapped for 50,000 years. Our ancestors were trapped," Terrell corrected. "I am separated from those original colonists by 2,000 generations. We evolved. We adapted to the different conditions inside the anomaly. We developed new technologies out of necessity, and we never forgot where we came from. Every child learned about Earth, about the blue world of our origin. It became almost mythological to us, the promised land we could never reach." "But you escaped," Chen said. 5 years ago, by the time inside the anomaly," Terrell explained, "our scientists finally solved the equations. We built a device that could tear through the dimensional barrier and return us to normal space. When we emerged, we found ourselves 50,000 years in our own future. Earth still existed, but it was populated by people we barely recognized. Our distant cousins evolved along a different path." Commander Hayes spoke up. "Why did you not make contact immediately? Why wait until now?" "Because we were cautious," Terrell admitted. "We had been isolated for so long. We did not know if humanity had survived or if Earth was inhabited by another species entirely. We needed to observe, to learn. We established a monitoring station at the edge of your solar system, and we watched. We learned your languages, studied your culture, tried to understand who you had become. And then the Korthax arrived," Chen said. "Yes." Terrell's expression darkened. "We had been monitoring your communications. We knew of the Korthax threat. When their fleet appeared, we held a debate aboard our ships. Some argued we should remain hidden, that this was no longer our world, that 50,000 years had made us alien to each other. But you came anyway," Park said. "Yes," Terrell said simply, "because regardless of how much time has passed, regardless of how different we have become, Earth is where humanity began. You are our family, separated by time rather than space. And family protects family. When we saw your world was threatened, the choice became clear. We could not hide while our ancestors' descendants faced extinction." Admiral Chen felt emotion swell in his chest. All throughout the battle, he had wondered who their mysterious savior was. He had imagined other aliens, advanced civilizations, gods descended from the stars. He had never imagined this, never imagined they had been saved by their own distant future. "You came home," Chen said quietly. "We came home," Terrell agreed, "though we find it is no longer quite the home our ancestors left. Much has changed. You have changed. We have changed. But the core remains. You are human. We are human. That bond transcends the millennia between us. What happens now?" Hayes asked. "Will you stay? Help us rebuild?" Terrell was quiet for a moment before answering. "That depends on you. We did not intervene to conquer or rule. We came to defend, but now that contact has been made, we cannot unmake it. The question is what relationship our peoples will have going forward." Chen understood what was being asked. The Vanguard had technology that surpassed anything humanity currently possessed. They had power that could change the balance of civilization. They could help Earth advance by thousands of years, or they could simply leave. return to wherever they had been hiding, and let humanity continue on its own path. I cannot speak for all of humanity, Chen said. That decision will need to involve world leaders and representatives from all nations. But I can speak for myself, and I think I speak for everyone who fought in this battle. We would welcome your help, your knowledge, your presence. Yes, you are different from us. You have evolved and changed, but you are still human.